Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the fifth quarter, your post-game show for your hometown football team, the nine-time national champions, the Racine Raiders. The Racine Raiders get the win today, 44-16. Another big win by the Raiders. The Raiders defense, another dominating game by them, and another big game by J.R. Taylor as well, as he broke the 100-yard mark tonight. And a big win by the Raiders, like I said, 44-16 over the Sheboygan County Rebels. And, I have kind of going to be a hard time picking a player of the game in this one. A lot of good candidates for that. And, we're going to talk about that a little later. We're also going to talk about the scoring plays for the Raiders, take you through the game, the key plays, the key moments of the game, and also going to talk about the play of the game. And, we're going to try to figure that one as well. Now, if you did listen to the pregame show here on your radio friend, AM 1400 WRJN, if you did listen to that pregame show, you heard Coach Kennedy talk about his keys to victory in Coach Kennedy's interview, and he talked about the team needed to stay focused. They can't get caught up in what they did last week, and they have to stay hungry. And in this game, the Raiders did that, aside from a stretch in the third quarter where they allowed the Rebels to make a game out of it again. But overall, they did just what Coach Kennedy said they needed to do, and a good win by the Raiders. So in this game, the Raiders did win the Rebels won the coin toss, and they deferred to the second half. So the Raiders got the ball to start the game. And I think Tom and Don said this was the third time in Coach Kennedy's career that they did not win the coin toss. I know I did have the stat last week as the Raiders won the coin toss and they deferred to the second half. But this time the Rebels won. They deferred to the second half, and the Raiders took care of got the ball first. The first drive of the game, the Raiders took no time to get into Rebels territory, taking just 2 plays. And after getting down to the Rebels' 40-yard line, they did fail to convert on third down and went for it on fourth, and they turned it over on downs. J.R. Taylor came up just short of the first down. The Rebels got the ball, and they drove deep into Raiders territory after a big catch by Hammonds. I don't know if I could give player of the game to someone on the opposing team, but after the game that Hammonds had, it's going to be tough not to. Hammonds, he had a huge game tonight. Big game for the Rebels. Probably the only guy on offense that really did step up for them. But anyways, Hammonds took it deep into their territory after a big catch, but it stalled there. The Raiders forced the Rebels to attempt a field goal. A 37-yarder fell short. The Raiders took over on the missed field goal. Did have some issues with penalties. That's one of the key stories in the game that I'll get to in a little bit. Had some issues with penalties, dug them into a hole, but they were able to get out of it thanks to a 24-yard run from J.R. Taylor, his longest run of the game. Took it into Rebel territory, and the Raiders then scored on a 29-yard touchdown pass from Craig McClendon to Travis Worthington. And with that, it was 7-0 Raiders with 4:24 left in the first quarter. The defense of the Raiders, like I said, came to play today, other than not able to stop Hammonds, but I don't think too many teams can stop him, to be honest. But the defense of the Raiders forced the Rebels to punt, and the Raiders took over. They had a block in the back penalty on the punt return. It was a pretty good return at that, but the block in the back moved them back, again shooting themselves in the foot. But they were able to move the ball against the Rebels defense once again, drove it deep into their territory before the drive stalled. There was a holding penalty against the Raiders, and they ended up having to kick a 25-yard field goal, which was good to make it 10-0 Raiders. And like that, Raiders are up 10-0, and for the third game in a row. And you think Sheboygan, if they were scouting the Raiders at all, you think Sheboygan would have been ready for it. But the Raiders go for an onside kick for the third game in a row, recover for the third game in a row. They drove the ball a little bit on the onside kick, but they were unable to connect on a third down pass and had to settle for a 25-yard field goal by Justin Shepke, which was good to make it 13-0 Raiders. And after that field goal, the Rebels got the ball back, and they were finally able to get on the board with 10:02 left in the first half. thanks to a 71-yard touchdown pass from Dylan Kelly to Gary Hammonds, a guy I am considering for player of the game, even though he does play on the other team, but I'll consider him. And touchdown there by the Rebels. The extra point was blocked by the Raiders and kept it 13-6. After the Rebels kicked off, the Raiders wasted little time driving down the field, and the drive ended with a 29-yard touchdown pass from Craig McClendon to Chris Hicks. And with the extra point was good to make it 20-6. And I'm wondering if we need to change Chris Hicks's, give him a nickname as Mr. Touchdown, because he seems to, every time he catches the ball for McClendon, it seems to be a touchdown. I know, it was his third touchdown of the year, but 2 games ago he had a touchdown. I believe last week he had a touchdown, and today. So I wonder if we can just change his nickname to Mr. Touchdown. I wonder if Chris would be okay with that. But following that touchdown, the Rebels, they were unable to do anything on offense. Went for it on 4th down. The Raiders defense held up, forced the turnover on downs, took over possession of the ball. After that, the offense converted on some 3rd down plays, took it into Rebel territory. The Raiders converted on another 3rd down and took the ball inside the Rebels' 30-yard line, following a pass interference penalty that put the ball at the 1-yard line. Craig McClendon then scored on a 1-yard touchdown run to make it 26-6. And the extra point was good, and it was 27-6 Raiders at halftime. Now we're going to take a quick break here, so I can catch my breath. Another high-scoring game for the Raiders. So I'm going to take a quick commercial break so I can catch my breath. And when we come back, we're going to wrap up the key plays of the game. So thank you for listening to the 5th quarter here on your radio friend, AM 1400 WRJM, post-game show of the Racine Raiders, which is brought to you by Len Sitko and Prosser's RV. We'll be back in a couple minutes. And welcome back to the 5th quarter here on your radio friend, AM 1400 WRJN. I'm your host, Evan Witalis, and I think I forgot to introduce myself at the start of the show. And for those who are wondering who this guy on the radio is, it just went through the key scoring plays of the game and never introduced himself. Wondering what's going on? Well, again, my name is Evan Witallison, and I'm here with your radio friend, AM 1400 WRJN. And I don't know, that promo, that the commercial that was just played about the Brett Favre Hall of Fame induction ceremony, wow, what a great opportunity for some lucky fans. 7 pairs of tickets to the Brett Favre, the dinner and the ceremony for the Hall of Fame induction ceremony. What a great deal. That is a huge deal right there. That is something I wish I could go to. I would love to be in the room when they introduced Brett Favre into the Green Bay Packer Hall of Fame. And they did talk in it about, when Favre went to the purple, a lot of Packer fans switched allegiances to the purple for the time being. I wasn't one of the fans. I was one of the fans that was quite angry at Favre for going to the Vikings. But, as they say, time heals all wounds. Brett Favre is back. And as it said from Magnum Media, Brett Favre, welcome home. So, that ad's going to be playing pretty frequently between now and for the next week or so. So make sure you listen and hear all the great locations that you can register to win these tickets to the Brett Favre Hall of Fame induction ceremony. So, like I said, would love to be there, but I'm actually going to be down in Nashville. So even if I could get the tickets, I couldn't. But whoever does win the tickets, whoever the lucky listeners are, congratulations. And, I hope you all enjoy it. So, with that, we do got to get back to the scoring plays for the Raiders. And now it's time to talk about the second half of the game. The Sheboygan County Rebels, they got the ball to start the second half, and with the help of a penalty, they did get the ball into Raiders territory, but the Raiders defense held on 4th down and forced a turnover on downs. The Rebels did get a blocked punt, took over the ball at the 9-yard line, and the defense of the Raiders did hold firm once again, holding the Rebels to a 28-yard field goal by Chris Lee. Yeah, really rough start to the second half by the Raiders. Following the blocked punt, the Rebels intercepted a Craig McClendon pass on the Raiders following possession. They drove it in the Raider territory, and they then scored on a 5-yard touchdown run by Santinos Modena for the Rebels. With the extra point, it became 27-16. And like that, the Raiders are starting to show a little sloppiness. And I'm sure at that point, Coach Kennedy is probably quite unhappy on the sidelines. You have the blocked punt, then you have the interception, and things were starting to lean towards the Rebels' way. They cut it to 27-16. But the Raiders got a big return by Galvin, but unfortunately, the drive ended with a second Craig McClendon interception, but the defense was able to hold a punt. And special teams was huge for the Raiders last week. Huge once again this week, as Torrey Ruffin had a 44-yard punt return to set up a Raiders 25-yard field goal to make it 30-16. And with that, like I said, 30-16. Raiders with 20 seconds to go in the third quarter. The special teams played big again, forcing a Rebel fumble on the kickoff, and again recovered by the Raiders. After a nice run by Galvin to take it inside the 15-yard line of the Rebels, J.R. Taylor then took it 11 yards for the touchdown. The extra point was good by the Raiders, and like as Don, just mentioned, went from 36-16 to 37-16, 21-point lead with 14:56 left in the game. The Raiders defense on the following Rebels possession forced a punt. The Raiders drove the ball deep into Rebel territory, but quarterback Craig McClendon threw his third interception of the game to end the drive for the Raiders, but the Raiders took the ball back on an interception of their own, but they were unable to do anything with the ball on offense. Justin Shepke attempted a field goal, but it was blocked, and the game stayed 37-16. The Raiders then forced a turnover on downs, took over possession of the ball at the 49-yard line. The Raiders then faked the punt, and Alan Hilliard picked up the first down on the fake. And following that 29-yard fake punt run by Aaron Hilliard, the Raiders scored the final touchdown of the game to put the score at 44-16. A touchdown run by Anthony Johnson, who was in a quarterback for Craig McClendon. And the extra point was good, and like that, the final score, 44-16. Taking a quick look at the stats of the game, the Racine Raiders, 24 first downs, held the Rebels to 10. The Raiders ran for 252 yards today on 47 carries, and they held the Rebels to negative 54 yards rushing, which is kind of interesting because neither team had a sack. So that running number was not downgraded by sacks. It was they ran for negative 54 yards. So a very outstanding job by the Raider defense and the defensive line of the Raiders. The Raiders did throw for 224 yards, Rebels 229. The Raiders did throw 3 interceptions. The Rebels did throw 1. Total offense, 79 plays run by the Raiders for 476 yards. 49 plays run by the Rebels for 175 yards. The Raiders had 5 kick returns for 120 yards, 3 punt returns for 49. The Rebels had 8 kick returns for 140 yards. And penalties, and I did mention penalties, Raiders committed 8 penalties for 70 yards, 40 penalties for 46 yards of the Rebels. And I'm sure that's something Coach Kennedy's not very happy about. I'm sure he mentioned that to his team after the game. The 8 penalties were unnecessary, and they ended a lot of, they really, I shouldn't say ended. They dug them into deep holes when the Raiders didn't really have any issue moving the football at all tonight, and by stupid penalties, careless penalties, the Raiders had to dig themselves out of holes that they didn't necessarily have to be in. Third down conversions, the Raiders were 8 of 16 and 1 of 2 on fourth down. They held the ball for 39 minutes and 52 seconds.